Are you a prepper or homesteader looking to connect with like-minded people in your area? Looking to start your own preparedness group? Already have a group? Well, look no further than PrepperNet. PrepperNet is dedicated to personal responsibility, individual freedoms, and being self-reliant. PrepperNet has monthly meetings in over 100 cities where you can meet and learn with like-minded people in your area. PrepperNet, where preppers unite. Find us online at preppernet.com.
Survive, thrive, stay alive. It's time to get prepared with the Prepping Academy podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Grid Down Comms Up on the Prepping Academy podcast. Today, this is going to be a kind of quickly put out, hasty episode that has been thrown together to talk about a situation that is going on in Spain, Portugal, and parts of France. As many of you know, early this morning, Spain and Portugal and France experienced a national power outage. At least Spain did, with parts of Portugal and France included. And this brought about some interesting conversation and a few things I wanted to kind of throw out there in a podcast for you guys right quick to think about. As of this time, the Associated Press is putting out that, or had this little interesting tidbit in one of their articles about this, that the outage hit across Spain, Portugal, including their capitals, Madrid and Lisbon. Offices are closed, traffic is snarled, and as traffic lights stopped working. It was not possible to make calls on some mobile telephone networks, though some apps were working. In Barcelona, residents walked into stores searching for battery-operated radios, and civilians directed traffic at junctions along the Gran Vista Avenue that cuts through the city. Now, the important thing to take away from this, obviously, is I tend to talk about communications, is that people were going in looking for battery-powered AM/FM radios. Because in today's world, a lot of people don't have a portable radio, a battery-powered radio, that they can use to receive information if their cell phone is not working. They've become dependent upon streaming for all their content consumption, cellular news apps, internet news apps for getting the latest bits of information and what's going on around them, but they don't have the tools to get information if that doesn't work. Now, here in the U.S., most people have a car and can at least go out and listen to the radio in their car and find out what is going on. In some more major metropolitan areas and other parts of the world where individual car ownership is a little less common, having that resource in your car may not be the case. And as people transition away from having that radio as the center of their home, having a way to receive information is something that not everybody has, at least if they don't have the internet to access that information on. So I want to look at a little bit about how publicly available, commercially broadcasted radio information is available in a situation like this, because we experienced a blackout in the early 2000s in the Northeast here, when cell phone systems were kind of in their infancy, at least compared to the smartphone systems of today. There were still a lot of people in New York that without radio really wouldn't have known what was going on or the extent of the blackout that occurred back then, and that was 20 years ago now. So one of the things that not everyone probably knows, if you're a prepper, you really should know this, and if you don't know this, you'll know it by the time we're finished here, that while many of us may not consider the government to be the most reliable source of information, or the mainstream media to be the most reliable source of information, at times they may be the only source of information. And if we want to try to figure out what's going on, they may be the only place we can at least get some truth in all the other stuff from them. So If you don't have a radio, particularly an AM radio, we're going to talk a little more about that in just a second, but if you don't have an AM radio that will run off batteries that you can listen to at home, just meander on over to your online retailer of choice, pick out something that you like, preferably something that will also receive shortwave broadcasts and do single sideband or SSB, because that will open up some of the things you can listen to amateur radio as well as shortwave broadcasts from other countries and that kind of thing. For less than $100, you can pick up a pretty decent Texan or even like a little ATS-20 or various other. You Google those names and you'll find lots of radios. You pick up a pretty decent little radio for sub $100 that will get you a valuable source of information if something happens. And the reason I kind of emphasized AM earlier is because during an emergency, the AM broadcast band has some unique capabilities in that it covers a much wider area than traditional FM will cover. It is also a lot more resilient to a number of potential failures. We won't really go into that here, but AM is an old technology and it's a fairly robust technology. And there is a reason that FEMA has chosen it as the National Public Warning System's primary entry points in most cases. And I want to talk about the PEP stations or primary entry point stations here for just a second for you guys who probably don't know anything about this, but again, it's something that might be valuable to learn. And if you have a PEP near you, to find out what that particular station is. And what a PEP is, or primary entry point, is it's an EAS station that has worked with FEMA to provide additional emergency alerting capability in the event of disasters or other situations, including EMPs. Many of these facilities have some EMP hardening done on them, to include, backup equipment and Faraday cages and backup generators and Faraday, and a lot of stuff done with some very, very capable organizations to provide communications in the event that there is some catastrophic event. And there are 72 of those facilities strewn about the United States that have a couple of weeks at least of backup fuel, maybe even more than that, depending on when they were built. They have backup transmission stuff. They have backup studios. They have basically everything they need in order to get on the air after an EMP. This makes these stations valuable resources in other disasters, natural disasters, and other things as well. If you've listened to me talk about Hurricane Helene and the situations there, the Mount Mitchell repeater that came up a lot when we were talking about amateur radio, that was a huge resource to Western North Carolina, is located on the same tower, I believe, as a PEP in Western North Carolina, which allowed it to have access to some of the resources that signal did while providing information to that area as well. So let's talk a little bit more about the PEP situation. There are, I believe, 72 radio stations in the continental U.S. and a few extras in territories and Hawaii and Alaska that aren't in that 72. Of that 72, about 10 of them are FM stations. So FM stations are pretty unusual in this program. The other 62 are AMs, because AM propagation allows them to have a lot of redundancy and a lot of signal overlap, particularly at nighttime when AM propagation allows it to travel hundreds of miles, if not thousands of miles, with enough power, and cover wide swaths of the United States. So those facilities are hardened, backed up, and able to provide you with information, or at least the publicly available narrative of information in the event of a disaster of some sort. So people in Spain, France, Portugal are turning again to those sources for information to try to find out what's going on, because no other sources are really available. And we like to think that in today's world, we are a bit above and beyond a simple power outage, knocking out all of these resources and rendering us unable to communicate. And while we do have a lot of backup and a lot of redundancy in power, especially for cellular sites, that kind of thing, we don't always have that for everything. If traditional landline services stop working due to power outages, oftentimes people will immediately try to move those sources over to the cellular network, which causes congestion and other issues just due to traffic volume, which can cause subsequent failures of networks. And then multiple hours in, as backup batteries start failing at sites that have no generators, and all that stuff you've heard before, those cell sites start struggling and cellular networks start going offline. Because in the world of disasters, many providers do not put generators at their sites. They put enough battery at the site to keep the site operational until they can get a generator there. And there are companies that lease generators to AT&T and T-Mobile and Verizon and all those people during hurricanes and other disasters that they can tow out and hook up at their cell sites to get them back online. The problem there is when you have a large multi-state hurricane, oftentimes all that stuff is rented out and taken up to provide, backup power in the areas that are affected. So if the situation was much larger, say, the entire southeastern section of the grid were to go down, there will not be enough generators and equipment to go around to fix everything. And it's more than likely that, densely populated urban areas will probably get prioritized for that. But there will still not be enough backup power to go around during a prolonged outage. And it's worth having some sort of communications plan now before such an event happens, so that you have a plan and know what to do, because making those contacts, having those friends, having those people across the country that you can reach out to via radio, if you happen to be an amateur radio operator, if you happen to be into that sort of thing, so that you can get information and find out the extent and the scope of what's going on, is something you need to build now while the grid is up, not try to figure out once the grid goes down. As people clearly in Spain are doing, trying to even just go buy a simple portable battery-operated radio so they can find out what's going on. The power's been off for hours, and right now there's a lot of things going on, and just as everyone knows, this has not been resolved at the time of recording this. It's still very much a active, ongoing situation. And they're giving estimates for later tonight, and today is April 28th, 2025, just for a timestamp there. They're saying that here in a couple of hours that they'll have power back on in some of these areas. It will be interesting to see if they meet those estimates or if they come and go with no power back on. As nobody is really saying what the cause was yet. This situation is a little strange on that front. We'll see what comes of it, but we can learn some lessons. We can sit back, we can watch, and improve our prepping position based off the things that we observe and learn and how people will respond. I expect that we'll pick up a few interesting tidbits along. So, again, I encourage you guys if you don't have some sort of even basic communications plan written down of, these are the AM and FM stations I'm going to listen to if the grid goes down. These are the amateur radio repeaters that I'm going to listen to if the grid goes down, and that will likely be up. These are the HF frequencies that I'm going to monitor. All of that stuff. If you don't have that jotted down and don't have a plan, I would encourage you to take 30 minutes tonight, grab a pen and paper, dial around the FM band, visit the PrepperNet Comms group on the preppernet.net site, and take a look at some of that stuff and just come up with a quick little plan. So if something does happen, you have a way to find out just exactly what's going on. Because it's got to be pretty scary in some areas to not really have any idea why the power's out, but know the entire country has no power, and frankly nobody's talking about why. So and the reasons I've heard that are why kind of frankly sound like BS. So we'll see what the narrative turns into. Really, all that said, I encourage you guys to make sure you do have a comms plan. Get your stuff in order. I think we're in for a bumpy few years here. I know with the Trump slump going on that it's very tempting to let prepping and preparedness topics kind of fall by the wayside, and everybody's worried about the economy as well. Make sure your priorities are in order and that you're financially prepared, and then that your food and water prepared, and that you have a communications plan, and you know how to get information, and you know how to make good decisions, and you're prepared for whatever comes your way. So don't take the foot off the gas pedal, guys. Keep going. I know it's tempting now to kind of slow down a bit and take a rest, and we all need to do that sometimes. But our time to do that may be coming to a close here as things get crazy once again. I'm going to try to get some more episodes out here soon. I've got a whole bunch of stuff in queue that I need to record. Some more stuff about what we learned with the hurricane, and some more kind of entry-level communications podcast stuff I want to put together to help you guys that may be interested in getting started in this. Get your stuff started, get yourself set up, and make those baby steps into the world of information. I'm also working on my YouTube channel at Grid Down Comms Up, all one word, where I'm going to be posting some more videos, hopefully showing off some field radio operations and some radio gear and modifying gear and all sorts of things that might be a little more on the nerd side for some folks, but are very valuable communication stuff, just to show that you can do this stuff with a little practice and a little skill. And let's take that first step this evening and not forget about your homework assignment for tonight, to sit down, make a list of the radio stations that are in your area that you would get information from during an emergency. Go over to repeaterbook.com and find out in your area what the Skywarn and the Aries and those sorts of emergency service group repeater frequencies are, and write them down so you'll know where to find them if there is an emergency and the internet is not working. Also, if you're very frisky, get your AM radio out, go outside tonight in the dark, and dial around and just jot down which radio stations that you can hear at night. You will be amazed at what you hear from a long distance away, and that will give you some idea of what information might be available to you if the grid goes down. Because even if they're not providing useful news information, if the sports station in New York is carrying a Yankees game tonight, then that probably means that everything in New York is pretty much normal. And it's just your little corner of the world that is impacted by whatever event has left you in the dark. So don't forget that valuable information. that can be found just by dialing around and knowing where different signals are located and whether or not they're on. Another example of that might be if you are dialing around the AM band and you hear no radio stations coming from the West Coast, that might be an indicator that something has happened on the West Coast that's preventing them from being there. So that's your homework for tonight. Listen to the radio, make some notes, stick it in a binder somewhere. Hope you guys have a wonderful week. Again, don't forget to check out YouTube channel. It's going slow, so don't expect a lot right now. At griddowncomsup.com. Visit PrepperNet at preppernet.net to learn more and get into the community of wonderful folks we have over there that are getting prepared for things just like the blackout that's going on now. Great group of people, and I assure you, you will make friends there. Also, if you are interested in just the basic info about PrepperNet and you've just stumbled across this podcast, check us out on preppernet.com. That is www.preppernet.com for more information about our organization. 7-3, everyone, and have a wonderful week, and we will see you on the next episode of Grid Down Comms Up. You've been listening to the Prepping Academy podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Prepping Academy podcast. Preppers Unite at www.preppingacademy.com.
Has your data been hacked? Do you feel uneasy about the vulnerability of your personal information online? Were you involved in the Target, LinkedIn, or Microsoft data leaks? Don't know? If not, then pay attention. Join Forrest Garvin from PrepperNet for a free webinar on privacy and security. Gain insights into safe internet browsing, VPNs, crafting online aliases, secure emails, detecting if your data has been hacked, and managing passwords. Secure your spot today for this webinar on privacy and security. It's free. This webinar delves into comprehensive strategies for bolstering your online privacy. We've got you covered, from fortifying your passwords to shielding your financial information and mastering state-of-the-art encryption techniques. We're offering 2 convenient dates to suit your schedule. Reserve your spot now at preppernet.com/privacy. Don't let cyber threats erode your peace of mind any longer. Take the first step toward a safer, more secure online experience by joining us for our free webinar. Remember, knowledge is power when it comes to safeguarding your privacy. Sign up now at preppernet.com/privacy. We'll see you there.